I took the risk in buying this PVS 14 from China for $1,500. It is Gen 3 white phosphorus, and I took that risk so that you guys don't have to. Today, I'm going to compare it against my Armasight PVS 14, which is a Gen 3 Bravo Armasight with PVS 14, and I'm going to talk about how I got it and you know, does it compare to the PVS 14 that I got from Armasight? Is it something you should consider buying? I'm not going to delay. I'll break down the differences between the two, some keynotes that you might want to keep in mind if you decide to go this route yourself, and then, you know, should you go this route yourself? Let's get into it. If you're watching this video, then you know the importance of night vision. I personally had my first experience of night vision when I was shooting with Mil-Spec Mojo, and he let me put on his nods. He said, "You've never looked through nods, we'll put mine on." I put them on. For the first time, I looked up, I saw the stars, I literally saw the Milky Way, and I said, dang, I gotta get a pair of those. How do I get a pair of those? And he politely explained to me that they were about $7,000, his set, and that they go up to $25,000, but I could get a PVS 14 for a really great price, at around $3,300, which is just one eye. And those are big numbers to someone like me with a whopping $12 in my bank account. And I've been spending every waking moment since then trying to get myself a complete set of night vision because I do think it is something that I want to have. It's something that is worth training with, but also it's really good for stargazing. Whether you fall into that category, if you're watching this video, you probably have already determined that you do want night vision and you want it for a reasonable price. And I do think that the 33 grand mark from Armasight is in fact a reasonable price for this. Unfortunately, this Bravo model is no longer in existence, and $4,300 it looks like is what you're paying now, which I think is completely ridiculous and unreasonable. So I'm going to talk to you about, if you even think 3 grand is reasonable, maybe you should consider buying one from China for $1,500 and then buying 2 from China and having a dual set. I'm going to talk about what the differences between these two are, if they are good, if they are worth using, and then also like what's the buying process like, how do you get your hands on this, because it's not as simple as just going to a website, adding the cart and hitting checkout, unfortunately. So I'm going to get this out of the way. There is a risk with buying the Chinese PVS 14. I bought this from Alibaba. And I want to mention that you may not get what you pay for. When you buy from Alibaba, everything is like supplier insured. They do have like trust insurers, and I've personally never been screwed, but you have to have common sense. You have to be able to vet the supplier yourself, and you need to be able to build a relationship of trust, all with someone who doesn't speak any of your own language. This is something that I would consider to be risky. You do risk spending $1,500 plus for one of these, or a set of duals, as I'll discuss in a later video, and not getting anything. So this is a 100% roundabout way to get nods for a good price that does incur a huge amount of risk that I'm not encouraging you necessarily to take on yourself, but if you believe that you're competent enough to do it, then go ahead, go right for it. I just want to make sure that you guys also are aware, I got this for $1,500, but I purchased it with a set of duals, so I'm sure they gave me a little bit of a discount. The pricing on anything from a Chinese supplier where you're negotiating your own price does fluctuate. You might pay more than I did, you may pay less than I did. It just depends on the week and how many sales they need to make, which sales rep is responding to your inquiry, and how good you are at negotiating, and more importantly, how respectful you are to these guys, because being respectful goes a long way. Let's talk about the Chinese tube. What does it come with? What does it claim to have? Well, it claims to have auto gain, which it does have. It claims to be 1890 FOM, and it's Gen 3 white phosphorus. It claims to have a bright light cutoff, which it does in fact have, and IR illumination. This is all true. It's all stuff that it actually has, and I found them to not lie about their claims of anything that is included with this, which is really, really good. I wasn't sure with the bright light cutoff if it was true or if it would have it, but it does. In fact, to the point where if I take this off here, I can't turn it on physically if I want to. It will not fire up. That is great. That's a very important thing, so you don't accidentally burn out your tubes. A lot of like home builds, when you buy the kit and then buy the tube and put it together yourself, will not have that in them. And I think that that's a super important feature, so it's nice to see that included on something this cheap, I guess this affordable at this kind of really, really entry-level price point. The Armasight that is no longer available for a comparison claims to have 2000 FOM. I do find it to be ever so slightly brighter than this other tube from China. Not a noticeable amount. I think it's just the color that makes the biggest difference. It's also Gen 3 white phosphorus. It also has bright light cutoff. It also has IR illumination, and it lacks auto gain where it has manual gain, which sometimes I do prefer manual gain over auto gain. And we'll talk about why that is, or when that is, when it comes up. In the box with this, you also do get the head mount, but it's like a cheap, weird looking head mount. You get a bracket to interface it with the head mount, which is a plastic bracket, but it's actually a pretty tough plastic. I wasn't able to bend it with my hands. Do I trust it more than a metal one? Absolutely not. I think buying a metal one or buying high quality interfacing mounts is kind of pivotal. If you're gonna save the money here, you might as well spend the money on high quality mounts, since that's the part that keeps it attached to your head and not in the ground or broken. This also did include a interface mount, or a helmet interface mount that plugs into, and the helmet interface mount actually does feel really, really secure, really, really stable, and it's made of a high quality metal, from what I can tell. It didn't feel cheap. It feels pretty sturdy, and I think that's really nice. It is all included in the case, as well as a instruction manual that I obviously threw away because I'm bad at paying attention to that. Now, the Armasight also did include all of those things as well, but since I bought mine used from a gentleman, I got the tube, which is good to me. I was okay with that. I got the tube. But the Armasight does include all those exact same things as well, if you buy it from Armasight, as far as I know, listed by their little spec sheet. A little thing that the Armasight includes that's a bonus is a sacrificial lens that this does not have, and then it also has a demist shield, which this does not have. But I will say, when testing this, I did get footage of it in Texas in high humidity and did not have any misting issues. So the demist shield may not be something that you need here, as well as no leaks, which I think is super important to note right off the bat. As I mentioned, when you put them side by side, they look extremely similar. They do the exact same thing, and they are both PVS 14s in PVS 14 housings. You can tell a drastic difference in the look of the Chinese one versus the Armasight one, just in the material that the tube housing seems to be made out of. I will say the one from China has to be some sort of cheaper plastic than the Armasight one, and when I weighed them side by side, I did take the little shield that I have off here, the iris, off for the weight test, and this came in at about 12 ounces, and this came in at about 10 ounces, which means it does weigh ever so slightly less than this one, and this is obviously without a battery inside of them. One of the other really cool features that I discovered with this one is that it's actually dual fuel, so it will take CR123As or AA batteries, and I think that is a really cool feature to have. I don't know if there's an option for this to make it that, but it's definitely not like that from the factory. This guy just runs on AA batteries. Ironically enough, when I got this, I just had AA's, and I didn't even realize that I could unscrew the little piece in here to make it take AA's as well until about halfway through the review. And when I realized that, it made me a lot happier, because it wasn't something that they had listed in the features. It was just something I had to discover on my own. Some other build quality differences that I think are worth noting. The China one is obviously a much cheaper build quality. The I-cup pieces are one of the biggest tells there. The I-cup piece on the Armasight is very robust. It's actually got like a plastic ring inside of it that keeps it in its structure form, and interfaces with the lens piece, or the adjuster on the rear of the Armasight one, and this does not have that at all. And then you get into it and you see the markings on these. The markings are kind of my easiest tell for attention to detail, and you'll see on the China one, it looks like someone like me just took a paint pen and pushed it, versus on the Armasight, it's much more pushed in there properly. It looks very intentional. It doesn't look like someone just put a white dot on it because they needed to at the last second, and it does feel fine. They both feel almost identical, ironically enough, on the when you twist them. They do jump, both of them. They have this little weird, when you twist it, instead of it being smooth on this back piece, it jumps on the Armasight and it jumps on the China one. Definitely jumps on the China one a little bit more, which makes it harder to fine tune that adjustment, as opposed to the Armasight, where it jumps just a little bit smoother. That is 100% opinion. That is 100% conjecture. It's just like a weird little note to say. And I think you can even hear they sound different. This one kind of squeaks a little bit, and this one's almost volumeless. So if that doesn't lend itself to like what a weird like nitpicky thing. But I wanted to take a lot of time on making this video because I do want to discuss there are key differences between these that are worth knowing about if you decide to purchase the cheap route or to go the cheaper route, because it may affect the longevity of the device. The lack of notes here, and then it does appear as if the paint from the text on the diopter portion is smearing in places, which is such a weird little thing, but it does appear to be smearing in places as if they rushed it, which again lends itself to attention to detail. So how that affects the thing kind of remains to be seen. I've been using this for months, about 2 months now, and I haven't had any issues with it, and I tested the heck out of it on multiple occasions before deciding that it was worth making a video on. And then I think that it's also worth noting the Armasight version has visibly better screws. They are both larger heads, and they appear to have a much better built-in torque bit size as opposed to the China version, which has the tiniest screws I have ever seen with the tiniest screw head I have ever seen. What that means is if you have to break these open for maintenance, this one, obviously one, you can just send it to Armasight and get it maintenanced. I'm assuming you can send this to another night vision retailer and get it maintenanced if you want to, but the screws being super tiny and fragile, again, kind of lends to the overall build quality. If this is the part that you can see on the outside, what is inside, right? Where did they cheap out inside? They did cheap out on this in some areas. Like I said, there's no sacrificial lenses. One of the other things that I think is worth noting is the eyepiece for this sits much deeper in where you put your eye up to the unit. It sits deeper in on the China version than it does on the Armasight version. Whether that's due to it having this demist filter before it has the actual lens or not kind of remains to be seen. But it does, when we get to the actual night vision test, lend to what I think is why this has a ever so slightly more narrow field of view than this one. It also, on the reverse, the end piece for this one, the Armasight one, the end lens comes out all the way to the end versus this one where the end lens is again tucked in even more. A very strange thing, but it makes this ever so slightly closer together on the lenses, which, if you know anything about cameras, which I do, should result in this having a wider field of view than this, but it doesn't. This one has a wider field of view than this one. So very interesting when we talk about that, but just wanted to hit the build quality as much as possible. The other thing is the IR illuminator on this is just a twist, and on this one it is a pull. So this is, again, you could accidentally, if you are in the middle of the night turning this on and you click it too far, 2 clicks, you will accidentally fire your illuminator, which if you are in a combat situation could get you killed, versus in this one where you have to pull it out and then twist it. So you can just fire it on real easy without paying attention to if you had 1 click or 2 click, because you won't make that 2nd click without pulling it out. I do think that's a feature that was, again, worth pointing out, and just something I wanted to mention. The other thing that shows huge on build quality is when it comes time to change the batteries. The Armasight tube does it right. They have really giant threads and a really big head. So if you're wearing a pair of gloves or whatever, it's easy enough to twist this off. And this one requires a little more twisting to turn it off and change the battery out. I think that again speaks to the build quality of the Armasight versus the build quality of the Chinese one. Just something where they, again, didn't pay super high attention to detail, or they don't ask kind of why something is the way it is. So big threads on this are a huge winner to me, and then little threads on this, kind of an L. But either way, whichever one of these you get, I recommend putting 2 drops of lubricant on the threads. It will make your life so much easier when it comes time to take it out and take this off and on. Just always lubricate your threads. I do that with flashlights. I do that with any battery operated thing, because it just makes it so much easier to take off and put back on. All right, so we made it to the part that you guys are probably the most curious about, which is how does the night vision look? If you didn't already see overlaid clips during this portion of the test, now we'll do an actual side-by-side comparison. I directly compared it to the Armasight in the exact same environment so that I could get a very clear and crystal clear kind of synopsis on how I feel about these. So I'm going to be honest, real-world testing, I don't notice a difference, and I definitely don't notice a huge difference or a major difference or any difference for that matter. But in a smaller, like controlled environment, that is where you can tell very clearly the big difference between these two units. So the Armasight one has a slightly wider field of view than the China version, and it's also got a ever so slightly brighter view than the China version. It doesn't have any chromatic aberration of any kind, and I have one dead spot on mine, and that's obviously I traded for it, so take that with a grain of salt. But the spec sheet on this are 2000 FOM, and the spec sheets on the China one are 1800 FOM. 1890 is exactly what they quoted me on the spec sheets. So it makes sense that it's just ever so slightly darker than this one. And then this one also, again, has manual gain. So I don't know if the gain settings are exactly the same on them or not. So if you do encounter something where there's like a bright light, on this one, you can crank that gain down and you're trying to see into an area, or you can crank the gain up depending on what you need, versus this guy where you're just kind of at the mercy of the sensor deciding if you need more light or less light. So if there's some light pouring in, it does make it a little more challenging to see. That being said, this one, even with its ever so slightly narrower field of view, still feels exactly the same. It's hard to say that these feel like a true 1X when you're wearing it, but when you're wearing it and you don't see anything else, this, to me, I don't have any issues walking around with it or anything of that nature. So this still feels the same, even though I just have a slightly narrower field of view. When looking at my no-name test, where I have the shapes and letters written in both white and black, ironically, this does do a better job of giving me more clarity than the Armasight one. I did some straight lines in the bottom corner, and you can see on this one, you can actually see that they are straight lines, versus the Armasight where they appear to be just kind of a blob. And that is, with these being both manual focus, that is set basically on my own ability to manually focus these for my own eyes, but I could not get this one to get any sharper no matter how many times I tried. So this guy does get a win for sharpness, which is really interesting because, again, it does have a noticeable amount of chromatic aberration when being used in the dark. With an illuminator, they, again, look great. I haven't had any issues with either one of them. They look really good with their illuminators on, and then I used the Rovivon GL4 Pro for an illuminator and a laser. Oddly enough, there was a flicker, and the camera captured the flicker, but also that was live and in person and in my eyes. So strangely enough, with the China one, when I had the laser on with the Rovivon and the flashlight, there was a flickering of the laser. I don't know what causes that. I don't know why that's there, but the laser was blinking rapidly. When I switched over to the Armasight, I again did have the same kind of flickering with the laser, but it seemed to be lesser so with this one. But I felt like that was kind of a keynote and worth noting. So this guy had a much more noticeable, like obvious flicker from the laser, and this one did not. So I think that gives you guys hopefully all the information you need. I want to make sure that when I talk about this, I tell you where to go to buy it. If you decide that you want to take the risk for yourself, which it is in fact a risk, to purchase from an Alibaba supplier, you go on Alibaba, you type in Gen 3 white phosphorus PVS 14, you get a bunch of results. You can reach out to a bunch of people. I've put the person that I worked with on the screen here, and I did in fact leave a review on their post with footage that was used in this video. So if you're looking for my exact supplier, they have 10 years of history on Alibaba, and that is usually what I go by. I want a supplier that has years and years of history with a lot of positive feedback, and not just like years of history where they're selling appliances or some cheap garbage. I want history selling night vision products. So that is something I look for specifically. This supplier was very communicative with me. They were great at communicating, except for when the product shipped. Once it's shipped, they kind of ghost you, and that's totally okay. That's pretty normal, I would say. The other thing that a lot of suppliers will try to get you to do is just wire them the money to their bank account. That is up to you if you want to do that. I never recommend doing that. I always say, when they say you just wire it here, I always ask them to send me an invoice through Alibaba. I find that to be more comfortable for me, and I think that that's less likely that you'll get screwed, because even a supplier who didn't screw me may screw one of you. That being said, they didn't know that I do the YouTube thing, obviously. That's not something you mentioned. That's not something they care about. They are completely unaffected by my channel. And so I bought it from them based on their reviews, based on their history of being a 10-year plus company on Alibaba. And then again, I took that risk. Do I have any regrets? Absolutely not. I think that anyone who tries to guilt trip you for saving yourself thousands and thousands of dollars, what in my opinion is, for most people at least, the difference between not getting night vision and having night vision. If anyone tries to guilt trip you for that and say, oh, you're supporting the CCP, oh, you're supporting China, you're supporting communism, yeah, the night vision is what we're going to use to fight those people, and what you're going to use to defend your life. So if the difference is not having any night vision versus having night vision that you got from China, yeah, I'll give the CCP money for the ability for myself to have functioning night vision and give me an edge over the competition. This is, again, the beginning of a series of Chinese tested night visions. You guys saw the China thermal last week. I think that this $1,500 PVS 14 is a huge win, a massive win even in that department. And I want to encourage any of you who are thinking about it to maybe take the risk. I think that my biggest regret here is that I only ordered one. And I wish I had the money to order more than one, because I would love to have more of these to be able to say, hey, not only that, but I have some extras and I'll sell them to some of you guys. I am not in that position, so I just have the one, and I'm very happy with it. I think it's a fantastic little purchase and an awesome device, and I'm very curious to see hopefully more reviews come out on these and more people talking about this, and maybe we will see a competitive edge in the market taken away from big night vision and daddy overcharge and put back into the people's hands with the availability of Chinese night vision becoming more and more prevalent. I think if I can do it, anyone can do it. If you're willing to do the research and you're willing to take that risk, to me it pays off. It's well worth it. Just make sure that you properly vet your supplier. Seems like we don't even reach half of our subscribers sometimes. So if you did see this video, go ahead and leave a comment and a like, and I'd love to be able to make more videos like this for you guys. So as I get more disposable income here in the future, I will keep taking the risks for you to hopefully give you the best purchase information possible, and maybe more kind of information on where you decide to spend your money.